Well, hello there. James Stephanie Sterling, the new PCW Women's Champion. Oh my, yes. For those of you who give a shit, all 5 of you, about my wrestling career beyond these videos, I think it's safe to say that Saturday night was a very good night indeed. Now, I know some of you may be wondering, Stephanie, how can a non-binary wrestler be the women's champion? In fact, some big brain on Twitter called me a mentally ill hypocrite for it, as if a wrestling championship is a gender recognition certificate. Well, I am thrilled to be able to answer your question with one simple message, a lesson that you all should have learned by now. The NBiz can have whatever they want. But we're not here to talk about how great I am, so sit down and enjoy another fantastic... My mouth's dry. Yum, 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 yum.
What's in the belligerent beak of the discourse duck this week? Wouldn't you like to know, you absolute fuck spanners? Let's reach inside and see, shall we? Why, look at what we've pulled up. It's a controversy involving Elden Ring, Epic Games, AI artwork, and accusations of intellectual property theft. Now that's a winning combination. Well, I mean, not for anyone involved. Recently, an independent game studio was accused of ripping off From Software's work, specifically a series of character animations from the smash hit Elden Ring. Don't know if you've heard of it. Given that game's immense popularity and the sheer obsession with which some of its fans dissect every facet to know it with the intimacy of a midnight lover, you'd almost have to respect the developers of Bleak Faith for the sheer audacity in trying to pass off Elden Ring assets as their own. Except that's not quite what happened, at least according to the accused. In fact, it would appear that Epic Games, through dereliction of its responsibility as a storefront owner, may be the negligent villain of the piece. Oh, the devs, Archangel Studio, have also been accused of being woke! And frankly, I'm not even gonna look into that fucking nonsense because I'm sick of the word and the imbecilic crybabies who apply it to anything that offends their regressive sensibilities. Fucking twerps. Let's start at the start. That sounds like a good starting point. Bleak Faith Forsaken is a fucking miserable Souls-like, because if there's one thing the games market needs, it's fucking miserable Souls-likes. There just ain't enough of them. Released on March 10th, Bleak Faith Forsaken was faithfully forsaking its bleakness until the grim spectre of controversy, the least desirable of all grim spectres, came a knocking at the door. Fucking hate when that grim spectre shows up at me house. Why can't I ever get the grim spectre of, like, roast chicken? Bleak Faith started getting unwanted attention when side-by-side comparisons between it and Elden Ring seemed to show identical character animations. The evidence is indeed pretty damn damning. This evidence was shared by the creator of DS Anim, an animation-based modding tool for Dark Souls, who condemned the use of said tool for commercial work. Bleak Faith Forspoken is 100% using animations ripped directly one-to-one from Elden Ring, they said. And I said Bleak Faith Forspoken instead of Forsaken. Fucking knew I'd end up doing that before the end of the recording. No, wait a minute, they did it. I mean, it wasn't my fault. I do not condone people using my DS Anim Studio software to aid in exporting animations to include in commercial products or sell them on Epic Games Store. Things looked bleak, but the accused had faith they could argue their case before being forsaken. Over on the Steam forums, Bleak Faith team member Roya claimed the animations weren't stolen, but acquired in good faith via Epic. Any animations not made in-house are from the Epic marketplace and have been up there for years rigged to an Epic skeleton, Roya argued. We've heard this comment before, but you can buy the animations yourself if you want, as they are publicly available and have been for a long time. Any other question or concern should be taken up with Epic themselves. I just really like the term epic skeleton. I'll show you some epic skeletons. Despite the emphatic claim of innocence, Archangel Studios did pledge to rework any animations that shouldn't have been distributed for commercial use. Along the way, the three-person dev team faced a backlash over its use of AI-generated art for various icon images. They quickly addressed that issue with new artwork. To skip ahead a bit to the overall conclusion of this affair, the animations found to be identical to Elden Ring's are being pulled and replaced. All taken at face value, I really rather feel for Archangel here. I want to say that despite coining the now widespread and sometimes misused phrase asset flip, I have no problem with games using pre-made assets provided the work is transformative in some way. I make liberal use of stock images on this very show, for example, but the application of that imagery is utilised to illustrate and visually enhance the original work I've done. A true asset flip is a game so devoid of originality it can't even be credited for the gameplay, let alone the art. These are games ripped wholesale from an asset store, renamed, and sold with zero effort but a fuck ton of audacity. See the sheer volume of con merchants, for example, who've tried to resell Unit Z. It makes sense for a three-person dev team to fill gaps in their creative ability, budget, or whatever, and purchasing assets for that purpose is the right thing to do. However, when you do that, you do just sort of have to trust that what you're using is legit. If I've paid a stock library for footage of a man having a shit, I'm kinda taking it on faith that it's legit stock footage I'm allowed to use, and you have to take it on faith that I'm not going to masturbate to that footage. Much. And one could get burned on that. I once had a piece of stock music claimed by YouTube's copyright algorithm, for example, when I thought the very idea of royalty-free music would avoid that shit. When I contacted the stock library, they just sort of shrugged and said it wasn't their responsibility. So, that was that. If it wasn't for the fact that Storyblocks' music library has some genuine fucking bangers, I might have stopped using them, but they got some genuine fucking bangers. Speaking of disregard for responsibility, we have to remember that the animations Bleak Faith used were said to have been purchased via Epic Games, with an estimated 10% of the game being made up of assets acquired this way. So Epic certainly had a role to play in all this. As a three-person studio, it was a vital resource to utilise throughout the 4-year development, explained Archangel when it pledged to replace the animations. The assets in question were purchased from the Epic marketplace in good faith, and with the understanding that Epic went through the proper vetting and review process before listing them for sale. Whatever that vetting process might be, Epic Games has denied doing anything other than its due diligence, with the implication that any diligence on its part isn't actually due. Pursuant to the marketplace distribution agreement, each marketplace seller represents and warrants to Epic that they have appropriate rights to upload their content. Epic shrugged. As with any store that hosts third-party content, however, Epic is not in a position to independently verify such rights, and Epic makes no such guarantee to purchasers of the content. Epic has basically passed the buck with a cry of caveat emptor, and that's, well, kinda shitty, really. You can blame third parties all you want, but if you're taking a cut of a sale made off the back of your store's apparent reputation, I think it's quite reasonable for any customer to trust that your wares aren't stolen goods. There should be vetting. There should be verification, outside of Scout's honour, because no game developer should risk being called a thief just because they trusted an allegedly credible storefront wasn't facilitating actual bloody thieves. I don't know, maybe I'm just naive, but I think that Epic Games might have a share of responsibility when it comes to Epic Games' Epic Games Store, owned and operated by Epic Games, of Epic Games Store fame. Archangel, having been burned by all of this, is of the same mind. Asset theft has a long and inglorious history. One day I want to do a deep dive on the first such situation I ever covered in my career, the incredible case of Limbo of the Lost.
That bird up there is really annoying.
Raven, he never stopped. He annoyed Black Hawk very much.
Maybe I could help.
How?
Oh, I know this one.
A point-and-click adventure game of exceptionally poor quality. This bizarrely written and confusingly acted collection of disjointed scenarios was released in the heady days of 2007. Back then, I lived in Eltham with a man whose hobbies included eating cat food and filing spurious lawsuits. He collected hats, his favourite being a World War II Luftwaffe cap with an SS logo affixed to it. I discovered this hat when I had my friend visiting from America for the weekend. My gay, black, Jewish friend. He was afraid. Yeah, this landlord of mine was the same guy who once turned off all the lights in the house and started calling my name while walking up the stairs toward me with a flashlight. He then bade me turn the landing lights on to reveal him stood there wearing a straw hat and a skin-tight wetsuit. He looked at me, shrugged, and said, "I'm kinky," and then turned and walked away. I was afraid. God, and he used to wipe his toothpaste-covered mouth on my towels. Oh yeah, and he'd fucking fill my computer full of viruses when I went away for the weekend because he'd use it to look at porn. I've legitimately only just remembered that one. I know all landlords are bastards, but some of them take it to a whole new Luftwaffe cap-wearing level. What were we talking about? Oh yeah, Limbo of the Lost. Limbo of the Lost is amazing for all the wrong reasons. The vocal performances are so committed to matching the grotesquerie of the character designs that they are quite genuinely disgusting and frequently border on indecipherable.
Ooh, I say, hello, sailor.
Oh, hello. I didn't see you up there.
I mean, it wasn't winter. How much should you? What with me stuck up here like this? Get any idea how long I've been hanging around in this soldier little cage? Well, of course you haven't come to think of it. You have asked me it's like day after day, night after night, just sitting here. Well, of course I do try to.
The visuals are equally sickening, with some of the most unappealing, least well-animated, repellent fucking freaks in game history. You can't interact with anything without having to hear a loud, awful fucking electrical sound effect.
Nice rump, though. Shame you're immortal, Briggsy, me lad.
I love it. I hate it. And the protagonist's twisted journey through Limbo ends with a complete fucking surrender of narrative sense when the game's entire cast throws him a surprise party and sings a song that has to be heard to be believed. And you bet your grundle I'm gonna make a believer of you now.
What's going on? I can't see a thing.
Go on, Rita, baby. Now that sounds really groovy. I tell you what, let's sing. Well, it's nice to see Brick safe and sound. After all he's been around, and in my view he should be crowned the King of Limbo. Well, he's had his ups and he's had his downs. He's had his smiles and he's had his frowns. But I still say he should be crowned the King of Limbo.
Oh, what more can a poor boy do? Working for the likes of me and you. What more can a poor boy say? But I could use your help in any way.
Anyway, Limbo of the Lost shot to infamy when it was discovered the game was littered with plagiarised content. It all started with a Game Plasma article revealing backgrounds that had been liberally ripped from oblivion. This drew scrutiny that led to the discovery of further pilfering, Black and White 2, Sea Dogs, Thief, and even World of Warcraft. Remember how I mentioned the audacity of ripping off Elden Ring is almost worth admiring? Limbo of the Lost is the audacity.
The 4 years. They present you here. You must be of big importance for them to lock you all up. But Eric will lose you. You just wait and see.
The punishment was swift and brutal. Publisher Trisynergy denied all knowledge of the plagiarism and the game was pulled. The developer, Majestic Studios, would continue its audacious streak by also denying knowledge of plagiarism in the very game it made, blaming sources external to the development team. To the best of our knowledge, Majestic claimed, no one at Majestic, G2 Games or Trisynergy Inc. knew about this infringement and knowingly played any part in it. Whee! Fucking incredible, really. The front on that is beautiful. Not as beautiful as the front on that, but what is? That front was also apparently a blatant lie, considering that Majestic's Tim Croucher and Lawrence Francis quit shortly after, citing the behaviour of certain members of the Majestic Studios team. The rest of their statement consisted of pure, carefully written protests of innocence.
If it were me, I would turn to drink. Well, that's the reason I think he should be the King of Limbo. Yeah!
Limbo of the Lost has been a personal fascination of mine since the controversy first broke. I've tried here and there to dig for modern day info on it over the years, but tracking down people involved with it is difficult as fuck. I recall speaking to a composer about it once, but sadly have no record of the conversation. I've chatted with game resellers who had tons of copies, followed a lead to THQ Nordic that turned out to be a dead end. In 2018, I thought I had something. I got a comment from someone at Trisynergy. Well, I'll let the comment speak for itself. Unfortunately, as I'm sure you know, this game was a disaster, they said. Yes, we signed on to be a publisher, however, we never shipped the product. I think it's best to let sleeping dogs lie. I mean, I would, but lying was part of the problem.
That's cool.
I'm sure one day someone with better connections or investigative acumen will be able to produce the documentary I wish I'd been able to. Limbo of the Lost is a truly compelling story, and I feel there's so much of it that remains untold. Of course, one can hardly blame Trisynergy or anybody else who was involved for not exactly wanting that muck raked up. Perhaps the dog should indeed lie. But for the rest of my life, I don't think I'm ever going to forget about it. I've got so many burning questions, chief among them being why? How? Why? Limbo of the Lost situation is, obviously, not Bleak Faith's, and in all honesty, I had nothing major to demonstrate by contrasting the two, outside of thinking this was a pretty damn good excuse to bring up a classic bit of video game bollocks. Well, I suppose the two stories do show a universal truth when it comes to asset reproduction. Any and all instances will be found out. It's only a matter of time, and it takes very little time at all. Like so many corporations who want to take their cut of the money without any cut of the accountability, Epic is relying on others to do that finding out, and to do so at the very literal expense of game developers. Archangel is the dev that got fucked over this time, but it could have been anyone really. The response is not satisfactory for us, and so we have taken the decision to replace the assets purchased from the store over the next several days. Some changes we included in the recent patches, and more are coming in the next few days. Certainly, this has been a huge lesson for us, and hopefully other indie creators out there too, that assets on these storefronts seemingly cannot be purchased in good faith. By all accounts, the devs in this situation did the best they could. They did the right thing, they went through the proper channels, and they still got fucked. Having your reputation dirted for doing the right thing is pretty bloody horrible, and people make up their minds right quick online. Epic may think it has no responsibility to its customers, but when you're providing assets for use in commercial work, and that provision could lead to a developer's entire career getting battered to all fuck, I really don't think it's satisfactory to put the onus on the victim. Plagiarism, especially plagiarism of well-known work, is stupid. To copy something word for word or reuse without alteration a piece of art is beyond foolish, because you're literally publishing evidence of your theft that can be verified at a literal glance. That's what plagiarized work is. It becomes incrimination the moment you slap your name on it, and it's an incrimination made all the more moronic by the very fact you slapped your fucking name on it. I've had people try to accuse me of plagiarism before. It's always been spurious as fuck. fuck and quite pathetic to boot, but it was infuriating nonetheless. Not because of the insult to my integrity, but to my goddamn intelligence. My heart goes out to any creative falsely accused of plagiarism. It's a cardinal sin of creativity. One of the worst things an artist could be accused of doing professionally. Nobody should ever be seen as delusional, as self-defeating, as outright fucking dumb as people who thought they could replicate backgrounds from bloody Oblivion and get away with it.
I think that we should be crowning him the King of Limbo.
Look, miniature fantasy Commander Sterling, look what we won! Look what we won! Now kiss! Oh, hello everyone. Welcome back. Now, we did talk in today's video about taking things on faith. We do only really have Archangel Studios' word that they used those assets in good faith. Some people are still suspicious, suggest they may have still knowingly used them. Obviously, I'm taking it at face value to make the points I'm making in the video. And I don't know, maybe they were that stupid, but you'd have to be really bloody thick. Speaking of really bloody thick, James Stephanie Sterling does have some more wrestling dates. Could just share those with you before we go. If you are interested in seeing the PCW Women's Champion in action, I will be at, what's next? Leeds this coming weekend. Saturday, March 25th, Commander Sterling versus PCW Heavyweight Champion Priscilla, Queen of the Ring. That's at True Grit, Leeds. The next date is April 22nd. That is in Preston. That is at PCW, where I will be defending my title in a triple threat match. What's next? The next confirmed date is May 12th. Effie's Big Gay Brunch in Liverpool, and I do have some other dates in between and beyond that I will be mentioning at some point. Other than that, thank you as always for your support. It's very graciously received. I think that's it. I'm off to polish my belt now. Have you seen it? It's really good. Look at that. Huh. Thank God for me.
I do up, I do be do up. I do up, I do be do up. I do up, I do be do up. The King of Limbo. I do up, I do be do up. I do up, I do be do up.